Very much for still being there with us. We told you earlier that our first conversation is going to be on the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Nigeria will on Saturday join the rest of the world to mark the World Day. The World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. The day is marked annually on the 30th of July, and this day is to bring people, draw people's attention and make them aware of the fact that people are being trafficked away without their consent every day all around the world. We will be focusing on the dangers of human trafficking. What is driving human trafficking? What is the force behind this crime? Worldwide coordinated efforts to curb it, and what is the situation here in Nigeria? And with us to have this conversation is joining us, Chair, Board of Trustees, United Nations Voluntary Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking in Persons, Dame JulieOkah Donli, who is the immediate past Director General of NAPTIP. Thank you very much.
Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see that this year's theme is use and abuse of technology. Can you speak to us on that?
Well, it actually tells us that, it tells us the role or the importance of the use of technology in the fight against human trafficking. The same technology is also used to perpetrate human trafficking, so it just tells us, how powerful technology is in either fighting human trafficking or promoting human trafficking.
Okay.
Let's look at the fight in Nigeria. Of course, naturally, our concern is Nigeria. And every day we see via the social media stories of those who have been trafficked, who had, possibly successfully either escaped, been rescued, or all of that. But you would have thought that these stories will enlighten people and teach them and show them, the potholes in their quest, to find a better life outside of the country. But it would seem as if more and more people fall victims of this crime. Where are we in the fight against human trafficking?
Well, I would honestly say that Nigeria is doing very well in the fight against trafficking, but Nigeria is huge. There are still so many communities who do not have access to the internet, and of course these traffickers are always like ahead of their game. They go to communities where people are ignorant, because human trafficking thrives on ignorance, and most of the time you find out that victims of trafficking are totally ignorant people. So they go from community to community, especially communities where they are sure that these guys are ignorant and don't know what human trafficking is. They move to the next community once they realize that this community is beginning to be aware of the indicators of human trafficking, or are being sensitized. And that's why I keep saying everyone has a role to play, because the federal government, of course, cannot do it alone. It's a huge task. Everyone must have their role. The local governments, the media, the CSOs, the NGOs are doing a lot. We have so many active NGOs in this fight, but we still need to do more in terms of awareness raising and sensitization at the grassroots, door to door, person to person.
Okay, go ahead, Didi.
Okay. Now, I was going to ask, what exactly are the factors that drive human trafficking?
There are so many, there's no one factor. There are so many factors, greed, ignorance, lack of education, lack of jobs, and so on and so forth. Like I said, lack of the willpower in some particular sectors, like maybe the local government thinks it's not my thing, it's the federal government's job, the state government thinks it's for the federal government, and so on and so forth. Everyone has a role to play, but there's so many factors, so many factors.
And those factors have continued to be the problem why, it will seem as if this is insurmountable, like this problem is impossible to eradicate. Yes, I know that you have said that Nigeria is not doing badly, Nigeria is doing well in the fight against human trafficking, but the factor of poverty is one major one. I heard a pathetic story of a mother who was told that that she was going to work somewhere in the United Arab Emirates, I think. And then she went there. While there, her daughter was also deceived and told that her mom was sending for her, while in actual fact, the mother was trying to escape from her abductors, you know, in that place. She eventually made it home, only to find out that the same person who had, you know, deceived her and taking her away to the United Arab Emirates had come back for her 16-year-old daughter, and she was in the quest to find her daughter. And a lot of the times it will seem as if these set of people, these victims, are helpless. What is the help? Where is the help for people like this?
Well, I'm really surprised that after all these years we are still talking about the same thing. I would expect that by now there should be a desk at the airport where NACTIP officers will be present, scrutinizing those who are going out, because they must go through the airport, scrutinizing them, finding out where they are going to, who they are going to be working with. I expect all this to be happening, because we keep hearing of people that are trafficked in all of these countries, but they went through the airport and they were not stopped, in spite of the fact that we know that they are likely going to be victims of trafficking. Because what are you going to do there? Who are you going to be working with? We must have a proper bilateral labor agreement amongst these countries. If you want our people to come and work, we must sign it, we must tidy it up properly. And these are things that must be put in place. While I was DG NACTIP, we're trying to put this in place with labor. But I don't know how far they've gone with that. But as long as we do not have proper bilateral agreements between countries, whoever is leaving Nigeria will just will end up being trafficked, either sexually or labor exploitation. It will continue to happen. So we must go back to the drawing board and sit down and tidy this up. Because if there's a proper labor agreement, then the countries will be held responsible for whatever happens to our citizens.
So for those who are already in this unfortunate situation, who find themselves in this unfortunate situation, how can they find help?
Well, most of them are able to run away from their abductors, that's what I will call them, to the nearest, you know, Nigerian embassy to report and seek refuge. I know right now there's a case was reported to my foundation about a girl in Libya who was also trafficked like this, and I made 1 or 2 calls, and then very soon she'll be back in Nigeria. We rescued one again in Mali last year. So there are so many cases like this, even unreported, because sometimes these girls don't know what to do. So if at the airport we have a desk where we tell all of these people, we give them some numbers and tell them, should you run into trouble, please call this number. I do that a lot whenever I'm traveling and I see these young boys and girls traveling, you know, and I know that they will be trafficked. I give them my number and I tell them, you're likely to be trafficked. If you find yourselves in trouble, give me a ring. And of course, in less than a week, my phone starts buzzing. So we need to give numbers at the desk at the airport to these people who are traveling, who are so ignorant and don't seem to even know what they are going to do, so that when they need help, they call.
Speaking of the Nigerian embassies in these countries, do you think they're actually playing their part in helping these people?
Well, I can't speak for the Nigerian embassies, and I wouldn't really know. We can only find out from victims who have gone to the embassies to seek for help, you know, to tell us their stories or their experiences. But I want to believe that the Nigerian embassies are there to help the citizens. That's the only reason why they are there, and they should be able to do their job.
Let's come back to the theme of this year's, the commemoration of this year's, you know, World Day Against Human Trafficking. Technology can be used for solution. The same technology is also what is being used to deceive and exploit people. How can we, you know, take advantage of the solution part of technology to curb this illicit trade in Nigeria?
Well, you know, a lot of people still are IT savvy, just like some are not IT savvy too. So we have all these Instagram, Facebooks, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of webinars that can be done, which we do a lot of that. Podcast, graphics, stories, warnings, and all of that. It's so simple. On the internet, every day you see fake advertisements, advertorials for job recruitments. In some countries, they give you, the impression that you're going to be paid beautiful salaries as drivers, as nurses, as maids, and so on and so forth. Online. The same online, you can go back there and say, hey, you need to look into this very well. These are some of the indicators of trafficking. These are some of the tricks that traffickers use to lure, deceive, and even blackmail. So be wary. If you see things like this, call this number to find out. So all of these ways, you counter them. Someone comes up with recruitment, you counter it. Someone comes up with scholarship opportunities, you counter it and say, hey, go and investigate, and all of that. The same thing. So you're reading the same thing. There's so many times the feedbacks we get from all of these warnings, all of these short videos that I throw out there, warning people about the indicators and what to do if they find themselves in situations like this, shows that at least people are learning, people are beginning to understand what trafficking is. But like I said, we have a lot of grounds to cover. There's still so much to do.
Okay, so speaking about the abuse aspect now, how does technology enable human trafficking?
Wow. Recruitment online, that's the easiest way to recruit. The blackmail you online, you see people with naked pictures, throwing naked pictures of victims just to put them on their toes, or to put them in check rather. So the same technology is used, to perpetrate evil. We have the dark webs and all of that, where all sorts of evil takes place there. They buy and sell organs online. They do all sorts of evil things, online. So the same online again, you use it to spread the message, to educate people, enlighten them, raise awareness towards all of these same things that are happening. You use it to trace money, to follow the money. You use it to track the traffickers, so it's, but of course, the advantages are usually more than the disadvantages when you talk of technology in the fight against human trafficking.
So it's the abuse, the use and abuse of technology. Technology and human trafficking, how people can avoid this trap is another thing. Let's quickly look at internet safety. Recall the case of the 10-year-old Chrisland student who, after the saga of what had happened in Dubai, it turned out that this child had been very active on social media and had a totally different life outside of the one her parents knew on social media. So it shows that there's need for safety, because it's not only adults that are trafficked, children are trafficked, and children like this are susceptible, to being trafficked. How can we push internet safety, particularly for young girls?
You see, like I always say, parents have a role to play. You don't leave the upbringing of your child to the schools. You see the telephones that some children use. Even adults can't use those phones. And I keep telling parents, you do not need to give children sophisticated phones, because they can access everything, even on the phone. We're not even talking about the PCs now. We're talking about the telephone, something as simple as the telephones. And these children these days are IT savvy. They know where to go to get whatever they want. So parents need to be careful the kind of telephones they give to their children. Because if you give your child a sophisticated phone, then you're already pushing your child to all sorts of dangers. All they need is to make a call and to receive a call and send a message. That's all they need. That's just the truth. That's all they need. Even if you have computers at home, you should program them. So there are some places that these children would not be able to go to. And of course, you keep educating your children. You keep educating your children. Should you stray to a wrong site, please come out of it and do not follow up with, don't discuss with anyone don't have any discussions with anyone, man or woman. You should educate your children on things like that. But the telephone is the worst weapon for any child.
But situations where they unfortunately have already strayed, how do we bring them back?
Counsel them. They need counseling. No one is useless. No one is irredeemable. You bring them back. You counsel them. And they'll, of course, it works. But unfortunately, we still haven't really adopted, the culture of psychosocial support. When you talk about psychosocial support, people think, oh, I'm not crazy. They think when you hear psychosocial support, it's for those who have, gone gaga, So, yeah, psychosocial support can bring anybody back. The earlier, the better. Yeah.
So I am looking at these tips by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, talking about how, the safety settings, strict privacy settings for children, just like you mentioned, to beware of strange friend requests, don't overshare, beware of advertisement that seem too good to be true, which you already mentioned, flag it, don't share it. For me, this is a critical tip. You said earlier that it's not about the government alone. The government cannot do it alone. And a lot of us, and I might also be guilty, see things like this, and I say, oh, this one is a fraud, these ones are traffickers, and I move on. But I don't flag it. We're not doing that. Is not enough. So flag it, don't share it. Can you speak a little more?
Yeah, you see, sometimes you see things on the internet, the social media, things that are not so good, and the first thing you do is to share. You don't share such because the more you share bad things, the more you spread it. So like he's saying, flag it, but don't share that. Rather, share the news, the bad news or the good news. If it's something that is bad, like, okay, for example, you see, how do I put it now? You see a pornographic material of a young girl, a baby, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, that is being abused by an adult. Rather than taking note of it and talking about it, the dangers of things like that, you're sharing it. So by sharing it, you're also promoting that, because you don't know where that will end up. And a lot of Nigerians are guilty of that. When you see things like that, they just keep sharing rather than condemning it and talking about it, that, oh, I saw this terrible material. I think we should try to investigate where it came from. Report to the authorities rather than sharing it, because the more you share it, the more you promote it. And that's a big problem. And
talking about that sharing, still referring to this Chrisland issue, one of the problems, was that a lot of people kept sharing that video. Of course, I had said, no, I didn't want to see it. Someone else had to say, I said, why would I want to see that?
I refuse to see it. I refuse to open it. I don't want to see it. Why should I see?
That's child pornography.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And everywhere else around the world, it's a crime.
A big crime.
So how do we begin to push also for legislation in this area so that people know that sharing, if it is linked to you, that you have shared, any kind of child pornography material, you can be traced, your IP address can be traced, and you can be arrested.
Absolutely. We need to start with the massive awareness and sensitization, because a lot of people are also ignorant of that. They don't even know that what they do is a crime. And of course, in law, ignorance is not an excuse, though. But I think we should start by raising awareness and sensitizing people on the dangers of what they're doing. And then, of course, passing a legislation on that would also help, But first of all, you need to raise awareness and sensitize the general populace, about this sharing thing. You see people, someone is being lynched to death, jungle justice being burned to death, and you see people taking pictures and sharing instead of trying to stop them from doing this. They are sharing, they are taking pictures, they are videoing. I mean, that's a very, very serious problem that we have to address.
Okay. So, sorry, taking it a bit back to the trafficking. Is it impossible to target these traffickers, these kingpins, and eventually arrest them? Is it impossible to do that?
Of course it is possible. Nothing is impossible. I mean, if the investigators do their jobs well, they should be able to trace it back to the kingpins, arrest them and prosecute them. It's an organized, criminal network. Of course, most of the time they have their agents who work for them. But if the agents are apprehended, they should be able to link them to one or two kingpins somewhere. Nothing is impossible.
Your time as NAPTIP DG, you recorded some successes. Tell us a little bit about that, because I recall, in fact, we had an interview with you some time back with one of the girls that you were able to successfully rescue back here to Nigeria, and several others. After any of these kingpins and criminals have been arrested, were they properly prosecuted?
No.
Have we seen prosecutions?
Absolutely,
Successful
absolutely. We've had so many prosecutions of traffickers, male and female. Some of them are still cooling off in various prisons all around Nigeria. Even now, till now, we're still getting more prosecutions because there were so many cases that were in courts, at the time, before I left. So some of these are ending up with, prosecutions and convictions. I mean, so most of them are in prison, So yeah, we had a lot of success stories. We're able to arrest quite a number of kingpins and female queenpins. Yeah. If there's something like that, at the time. And I believe it will continue, It's a very terrible crime, and because the risk is very low and the profit is very high, so it's a crime that must be taken very seriously. Zero tolerance for human trafficking.
I believe Edidio asked that question earlier, if it's impossible, because we'll always hear how difficult it is to nab these elements. Just like you also said, it's an organized crime.
Yeah, it is, but it's not impossible to get to the kingpins. It's a clandestine kind of crime done behind closed doors, more or less, and you hardly have a one-on-one with the main kingpins. But in human trafficking as well, it's also easy because the madams are known, and these are the women who control the girls. Yeah, the madams are usually the ones who are in charge of the girls, who recruits these girls, and who these girls remit all the proceeds to, especially when they are used for sexual exploitation and all of that. So I don't think it's difficult. Even the agents, those who call themselves agents, who go to villages to recruit little children and give them out to house helps, as house helps, those two are also traffickers for labor exploitation. They are the ones that they pay the monies to. And these girls are working, young underage girls are working in people's houses. That's another story for another day.
In fact, that's one I would like us to actually talk about.
We need to sensitize our women. You go to some homes, you see 8-9-year-old girls as house helps in your homes, and you're paying the salary to someone who calls himself an agent or the brother of the girl. They usually call themselves brother. We should stop encouraging that practice. Women who are in the habit of getting these young girls from so-called agents, as house helps, should stop, encouraging them. And again, they pay salaries to them, to the agents, not to the girls that are working, for them. You shouldn't even have a child in your home in the first place, working as a house help. You should have an adult working for you, because what that does for you is that you expose your own children to all sorts of risk, because a child cannot even take care of herself, let alone your children. So doing that alone is even being very unfair to your children. So yeah, we need to educate our women who are in that habit.
Okay, so concerning tomorrow, the actual day, do you have any plans?
Truthfully, we had plans, but the plans are on hold due to security concerns. Yeah, we planned to go out, to a community, a remote community, but we put it on hold. So what we did was, from the beginning of this week up till today, we had podcasts, we had webinars, we had a press conference, and we had a visit to 1 or 2 victims of trafficking that we rescued. and we're taken care of. So those are the things we did. But the plans for tomorrow has been cancelled for now.
Is there any way to make it virtual?
No, it was meant to be a one-on-one thing where we were going to the community to have like a town hall with the people there, you know, to raise awareness and sensitize them on the dangers of human trafficking, because that particular community I hear is, you know, very prone, you know, to trafficking. So that was what we were going to do. So things like that you can't even do it online, because most of them again
don't have
access, you know, to it. So we had to push it on home. Right, but yesterday we had a webinar on human trafficking.
Let's round this off by reminding people what the warning signs of trafficking are. Just a few pointers as to how to recognize that this is a trafficker.
Well, using the theme, use and abuse of technology. The warning signs are advertorials for job opportunities, scholarship opportunities, and so on and so forth. Then, of course, on the face-to-face value, the warning signs are, I have a job for you, either within or outside Nigeria, or there are scholarship opportunities. Please don't discuss it with a third party. Well, you have to swear to an oath because we don't want you to run away with our money. All these are warning signs. You know, these are indicators of human trafficking. And, you know, when you come in contact with things like that, then you must run.
All right. And also to say that sometimes it's not always greener on the other side.
Absolutely.
Like someone says, it's greener where you water the grass.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank
we want
you so
to thank
much.
you so very much for finding time to join us. The Chair, Board of Trustees, United Nations Voluntary Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking in Persons, Dame JulieOkah Donli, who also is immediate past Director General of NAPTIP. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Always